sometimes when the spiritual burnout is presenting, it is an invitation to do more. The guidance that I got was to ask her, but what do you actually want to be doing right now? I hear all the things you're doing, but what do you actually want to be doing right now? And she said, I want to be live with my people, with my community. I'm doing so many things online, but I want to be with them live in person. I miss that. I used to do that a lot and I miss that. And I said, great. So do that. Right? Which didn't look like taking things off of her plate. It actually involved adding something huge to her plate because she decided to do a live event. And in that, yes, there was actually more work to do, but it was the aligned work. It was what the soul was craving. It was what spirit and God and the universe and great mother and source was just asking for to be created through her that she was feeling as well. And that is what unlocked the miracle zone for her in that moment. It wasn't taking all these things off. It was like, this is crazy. We don't know how this is going to work. How are you going to pull this off? But this is the way, and I'm saying yes to it, and I'm opening myself up for it, and I'm opening myself up to be supported in saying yes to this wild, crazy calling that to anybody else would make no sense. But I'm saying yes to it, and I'm moving forward in the miracle zone, supported by the miracle frequency. Let's go. And the magic that ensued was wild. I wanted to just give you that example because sometimes it is the more. It is doing that thing that's bigger that you've been putting off, whether it's a book, whether it's a live event, whether it's starting that second business, whether it's finally opening that retreat center that you've been dreaming of, whatever. Sometimes the answer to the burnout is actually the more, letting the moreness of what wants to be expressed through you to be expressed through you, fueled not just by your internal humanly resources, but by the all. This is the Miracle Zone. I ask, I see, I know, I trust, I be. Welcome to another episode of the Miracle Zone. And today I'm excited to dive into a topic that I personally love to talk about, which is burnout. And we're going to explore the two types of burnout and also some of the misconceptions around burnout. Oftentimes, what we think when it comes to burnout is we need to do less. I haven't found that to be true. Sometimes the invitation is to do more, and it's really counterintuitive. And so we're going to explore that as well, and how it's all linked to being in your miracle zone. So when I started in the coaching space, it was about 10 years ago, and my focus was burnout coaching for leaders, visionary leaders, conscious entrepreneurs. I was supporting people across various industries. And so I saw various forms of what burnout looked like, working with people living on various continents. And so it was really interesting for me to see some of the commonalities that were showing up, but also some of the distinctions between the type of the burnout that people were experiencing, and also like the solution, the pathways out of the burnout or for preventing the burnout, depending on who they were and also how they were living their lives. So I wanted to bring some of that juicy insight here because I think burnout is very oversimplified when we talk about it in the context of leadership, in the context of business building. And there's a really rich layer of exploration that we can do when it comes to burnout so that we can dance with it more in the way that we lead, in the way that we lead our businesses, in how we think about leading our teams, and thinking about burnout within our work culture that we're cultivating. And it's just such a juicy conversation. So I want to begin by sharing about the first type of burnout, which is, I think, the most common type that we hear about. And it's oftentimes you're just feeling like you're running ragged, you know? There's either getting out of bed is difficult, there's no energy, you can be having all sorts of physical symptoms, there can be brain fog. I know when I was in this place myself, there was also really a deep disconnection from my creativity. Like I just didn't feel like a creative person or a creative being. I was struggling to access that. It can affect our productivity, our mental well-being. It's like a heavy the image that's coming to me is Eeyore, you know? It's like this heavy cloud of energy that's just like sitting on us, and it can really affect us physiologically as well. And so there's this like physical kind of mental burnout that happens. And so that's one aspect of burnout. And I think both aspects of burnout can present themselves in this way. We notice it in our physical body, we notice it in our energy. And oftentimes, yes, we've been pushing ourselves too hard. We have maybe haven't been sleeping enough. Sometimes there's things happening in our world emotionally, in our relationships, that is causing us to overexert ourselves emotionally. It's not always just work, right? But oftentimes, at least with the leaders that I work with, we're really ambitious, we're really passionate, we're doing all the things, we're overstretching, maybe we aren't sleeping as much. Oh, wait, like, where's lunch? I haven't even fed myself, right? That happens. And it's not always, from a negative place. Sometimes we're just really passionate. I know that's the case for me. When I'm into something or when I care about something and bringing a vision to life, or it's a cause that I care about. I used to work in the nonprofit sector in my first career, if you will. I just get passionate and it's just like all go. There's that startup vibe. And yes, that can take a toll on us in terms of replenishment and overtaxing the system. And in those instances, oftentimes, yes, it's taking that approach of, okay, how can we bring more rest in? How can we nourish ourselves? What can we take off of our plate? What support do we need to bring in or call in? What do we need to delegate? There's many of those conversations. And again, it's like a platter of things that we need to do. It's not just one, but the theme being that we need to often do less. So our nervous system typically is overtaxed, it's overworked, it needs to be reset, it needs to be regulated. So there's some tending that we need to do to our physiology as well, right? And so I'm not going to go into all of the things, but the theme is a doing less kind of theme. Now, what I found working with many leaders on these interventions, if you will, or these practices, or whatever these shifts are that we need to make, is that focusing on just this, or self-care, if you will, is oftentimes the surface level. Sometimes there's something deeper going on, and it's way beyond more self-care, more rest, more time for myself, right? And so this brings me to the second type of burnout, which is, I think, more the way that I see it is more related to misalignment and what we are doing or how we are being in everything that we are doing. So let me break that down a little bit. We can do the same thing in very different ways. We can structure our day in various different ways as we do different things, right? And we can source our energy also in very different ways. And oftentimes, when we think about that, we're thinking about sourcing our energy internally from us. But there is a whole universe of life force creator energy that we can harness and sip from this fountain to fuel the things that we are doing throughout our day. And so, what this other type of burnout looks like or feels like when I'm working with people on this particular issue, and we're looking at what's really going on that's draining us, that's keeping us from accessing our full creatorship, our full creativity, our full energy, our full life force. Oftentimes, this is more of what I like to see as a spiritual burnout. So I'll give you an example. One of my very first clients, this was around 10 years ago when I had just launched the coaching business. She was doing amazing big things in the world, impacting hundreds of thousands of women and children in this cause that she was a leader, a thought leader in. She was speaking at conferences. She had her team that she was leading. And it was a lot. I think anybody looking at her plate, in addition to she had 2 kids, anybody would look at her plate would be like, wow, this is a very busy woman. No surprise, she's burned out. Right? But what was interesting is when we came together and really spent the time to see what was going on for her. And yes, there was physiological stuff going on, there was mental health stuff going on. There was a lot, and she was in a very dark place, even though to the outside world nobody knew that. But in our conversations, that's what we were exploring, is the depths or the source, the root cause of what was actually going on. What was so interesting is, yes, we looked at all of those other things, but when we dug deeper, the thing that really came up as the cause of this was that she realized that she felt really disconnected from spirit, from source. That was no longer a part of her life as it had been before she was so busy. So, in her beautiful platter of amazing things that she does in her day, that piece was what was compromised in the name of all of the other pieces. And it was really fascinating because, in addition to all the changes in lifestyle and her health and the workload, and what we were talking about, what the team should be doing and delegating, and what she should say yes to and no to, and navigating boundaries, and all of those things that we do when we're trying to reshuffle the pieces of our lives to support us better. This was like the crux of it, the center of it. And the thing that gave her the most energy back, if you will, that then helped the other pieces around her fall back into a place that felt nourishing, was simply taking time once a week to connect with herself and with her spiritual practice. Now, this looks different for everyone. For her, it was, oh my goodness, I used to go to Bible study and now I don't. And I miss having that space with those amazing women that I used to spend that little bit of time with every week, both to connect with myself, to connect with them, and to connect with God, right? For others, this could look like attending a circle or doing a ceremony or making space for a meditation in your day. But for her, it was so clear. It was like, oh, I just need to start attending my Bible study again, right? And so for each of us, this is going to look really, really different. And it's so revealing that it can be something like that, that we wouldn't even put one and one together, right? At the time, I wasn't focusing on working with spiritual entrepreneurs and CEOs. So this wasn't on the agenda. It wasn't like, hey, come and let's work together to reconnect you with your spirituality and with life force. And I wasn't talking about miracles, none of that. It was very practical, like burnout. Let's look at this. Let's get practical in the business and how you lead. Let's look at that. It wasn't even on the agenda, but it was so revealing to me that this was the thing that came out, and it really actually shaped my understanding of how to support people through burnout, to also keep an eye out and an ear out for this type of burnout that isn't so much about all the things that we're doing, but maybe the thing that we're not doing, or the way that we're doing it, we're not weaving this element of sourcing from the universe, from source, from God, from the great mother, whatever this force is for you that gives you that extra energy to plug into your life. Just like we can plug into extra energy through what we eat, there's this extra energy of this life force that is here to support us. And so I wanted to share that and go one step further, because oftentimes when I see this spiritual burnout presenting, it's not just about this one thing. Especially now, most of the people that I spend my time with, that I support, the circles that I run in are very deeply spiritually connected. So it's not like a big aha that, oh, yes, I need to cultivate a spiritual practice. I think it's kind of baseline, it's understood. We know it's important. We've been doing it for a while, right? But I still see the spiritual burnout presenting in a different way, in a more, I don't want to say elevated way in terms of hierarchy, but in terms of our personal evolution, yes, a more elevated way, which is sometimes when the spiritual burnout is presenting, it is an invitation to do more. So let me explain that a little bit. I think we tend to easily go to, oh, I'm overstretched. I need to stretch less. And part of working with you to find your special magical spot in your miracle zone is creating the space for that, right? Making sure we're delegating all the things we need to delegate. We're creating space and time for our connecting with our multidimensional spiritual selves and abilities, so we can channel that force into our mission, into the movement, into the business, into the brand, because we know that frequency is so important. And sometimes our mission and life force, great mother, God, whatever that is for you, has such a bigger vision for you that burnout presents as an invitation into more, into the next level, into more of your fullness, more of your expression. And so what's keeping you from accessing that full energy and feeling stagnant and stuck isn't that you're overstretched. It's that you're doing the wrong things and you're thinking too small. You're thinking too small. And so you're stuck in the doing of all of these things. And yes, you have your spiritual practice, but it's still too small. I want you to just feel into that, because when we think about the energy that's available for us when we're fully tapped in, it is a lot of energy that is available to move through us. And so if our system is operating at a certain level and allowing a certain frequency of energy to move through us, but there is so much more available. Think about that huge life force and huge mission and all of that wisdom that you're bringing with you from lifetimes and lifetimes before. And it's there. And it's like we're trying to fit this huge energy in this like smaller container. Then, yes, your nervous system will seem dysregulated and you will seem like there's too much pressure on you and you're doing too many things and you just can't do it all because of this some mismatch of what we are doing and what we are capable of doing and what we are being invited to do, right? And so it's an invitation to stretch more or think bigger. And so in this case, the pathway through this burnout is the alignment with what is being asked of us that we know, because we usually can feel a little inkling, a little nudge in our soul that's, there's something else, or we feel that. I often see this. I love my clients. I often see this as there's a book. There's a book it'll come through. I feel there's a book. I feel there's a book. And I hear them talking about this book. And it's, yes, okay. But when is it coming through? Because it's like here. The weight of it is here. The energy of it is here. And so we may look at our plate and be like, whoa, I have so many things to do. And I'm feeling really burnt out and really overstretched. And I need to take things off my plate. Yes, that's one conversation. The other conversation is there is a force of energy in the 3D form of a book, a transmission that wants to flow through me. And I'm not having the space or creating the receivership container to receive it. And that's creating some incongruence or misalignment with what I could be doing in this moment that's different from what I'm doing now, right? And so there's creating space for rest and doing less. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's so important, especially in this world where we're so focused on production and in these more extractive models of leadership and business building that we've been conditioned into. So that is absolutely, yes, 100%. Sometimes the invitation is into more. So I'm going to give you another example from a client of mine who I'm definitely going to have on the podcast very soon. And I was speaking with her and she was telling me about all the things that were going on. And I could sense that there was this feeling of, okay, it's too much. I'm overstretched. I'm not sleeping enough, all of those things. And so we were, again, creating the space to explore that. And there was business stuff going on, family stuff going on, a potential move going on, tending to parents going on, all of a beautiful cocktail of being in high service to many and holding a lot. And sometimes when I'm having these conversations, I'm guided to take you down a pathway of what can we take out. But in this particular instance, the guidance that I got was to ask her, but what do you actually want to be doing right now? I hear all the things you're doing, but what do you actually want to be doing right now? And she said, I want to be live with my people, with my community. I'm doing so many things online, but I want to be with them live in person. I miss that. I used to do that a lot and I miss that. And I said, great. So do that. Right? Which didn't look like taking things off of her plate, the things that were already on her plate. It actually involved adding something huge to her plate because she decided to do a live event. And in that, yes, there was actually more work to do, but it was the aligned work. It was what the soul was craving. It was what spirit and God and the universe and great mother and source was just asking for to be created through her, that she was feeling as well. And that is what unlocked the miracle zone for her in that moment. It wasn't taking all these things off. It was like, this is crazy. We don't know how this is going to work. How are you going to pull this off? But this is the way, and I'm saying yes to it, and I'm opening myself up for it, and I'm opening myself up to be supported in saying yes to this wild, crazy calling that to anybody else would make no sense. but I'm saying yes to it and I'm moving forward in the miracle zone, supported by the miracle frequency. Let's go. And the magic that ensued was wild. And I can't wait to have her on here to share this story with you. But I wanted to just give you that example because sometimes it is the more. It is doing that thing that's bigger that you've been putting off, whether it's a book, whether it's a live event, whether it's starting that second business, whether it's finally opening that retreat center that you've been dreaming of, whatever. Sometimes the answer to the burnout is actually the more, letting the moreness of what wants to be expressed through you to be expressed through you, fueled not just by your internal humanly resources, but by the all. So I'm going to pause there and just invite you to sit and reflect on it a little bit, on where this might apply to you in your life now, or maybe in the past. Maybe in the past, there's been a time where you've been running a story of, oh, I worked myself to the bone and I burned out and I don't want to do that again. That's a really common thing that I see. And I see it in myself too, is sometimes that I underexert myself because I don't want to go there again. I know burnout intimately. I don't want to go there again. But going there again can look very different. Maybe I wasn't overexerting myself and spread too thin and not receiving support. Or maybe I was. Or maybe I was just not doing the aligned thing, the big thing that I was feeling called to do. And it was causing all of this energetic crunchiness that made what I was doing so much more difficult. I was like a little plug or little pressure plug, keeping the creation from flowing through me fully. And it's a really, really, really fine distinction between the two of asking, is this burnout or fear of burnout? Or even before getting to burnout, when we find ourselves contemplating this topic, is this an invitation for less or for more? All right, my love, it's been beautiful to connect with you today. It is my deep honor to be able to support you to be in your miracle zone, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Miracle Zone. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a transmission. And if today's episode and conversation resonated, leave a review and share it with a fellow visionary leader. In the links, you can access my free Miracle Business Blueprint, the 7-part framework I use with my clients to create a thriving, scalable, and self-sustaining business that gives you more freedom, not less. Plus, you'll receive a guided process to identify where to focus first so you can spend more time leading in your miracle zone right away. Let's build the new as a collective for the collective. Together, we're not just creating miracles, we're living them. Until next time, stay in the miracle zone.